In today's video, I'm going to show you how to find DeFi yield farms for yourself. On this channel, I often share some of my favorite DeFi opportunities. However, there are free tools out there that you can use to actually find things on your own. And in today's video, I'm going to teach you how. Welcome back to Dynamo DeFi. My name is Patrick. And quick reminder, this isn't financial advice. I'm going to show you techniques to do your own research in this video. I'm not suggesting you invest in the examples I'll use to show those techniques. Now let's get into it. To start, let's go through the tools that we'll be using in today's video. First tool is DefiLlama. Love this website. I use this all the time on the channel to show you metrics related to different DeFi projects. However, they also have an extremely powerful yields dashboard. To access it, look here on the left on DefiLlama and click on yields. And here, this is going to bring up this page, which has over 10,000 pools, each of them with over at least $10,000 in deposits. And what makes this really powerful is, first off, that it's extremely extensive. It has thousands and thousands of pools across pretty much every chain you can imagine. And second, it has a very powerful set of filters. The filters, just at a glance, are token, chain, project, category, attribute, TVL, and APY. And then there's some other settings on here as well. I'll go through each of these one by one in a minute, but just know that this is the first tool we're going to be using. The second tool is Beefy. So what is Beefy? Well, Beefy is a yield aggregator, but I think it's also one of the best places to search for yield. It has over 23 chains on it, and across those chains, it has over 1,000 vaults. And one thing that's nice about this is that it's a little bit more vetted. And on top of this, it shows you in more explicit detail where the yield is coming from. For example, if it's from a temporary grant or not. And you can see these ones here, for example, are Aerodrome. There's a concentrated liquidity manager vault, and then there's a DAO boost on that pool. So it really gives you a good breakdown into where the yields are coming from. Easily lets you filter by chain. You can see it's just a single click, and then has other filters as well, such as filtering to stablecoins, blue chips, and other types of assets. So really, really like Beefy, and I'll be showing you some ways to use this to find pools. Additionally, if you want to learn about more pools as well as more tools for finding yields, because there's many other good tools as well, but I'm focusing on two very powerful free ones today. Check out my newsletter, dynamodefi.substack.com. Every week I send out a tool. For example, this past week I sent out Beefy Finance. I also send out things like upcoming token unlocks so you don't get dumped on. I send out new farming opportunities. I send out on-chain analysis and more. I think it's one of the best newsletters in DeFi, so be sure to check that out. Also, you get a free 30-page guide to on-chain analysis when you sign up. All right, so let's talk about how to use these platforms now. First, DefiLlama. And first thing I'm going to show you how to do is how to actually find pools, because there's 10,000 right now. This would be crazy to search through manually if you were looking for something. So the first thing you might want to do is filter by token. Say, for example, you were only looking for yield on ETH. First thing you would do is you would go to the token filter and you would type in ETH, and then I'm going to start checking off options I want to include. So we want wrapped ETH, we'll take ST-ETH, we'll take RETH, we'll take METH. There's a whole bunch here, right? And let's just start with those, and then we can always add more later, but this is just an example. Next thing you might do is filter by chain. So on this channel, when I share, for example, my top DeFi strategies on Base or on Solana, I'm oftentimes starting out by coming here to DefiLlama, and I am looking for yield specifically on that chain. So I can click on the only button next to the chain, and now I'm only seeing yields on Base. And remember, we still have that filter on for tokens. So now, rather than having over 10,000 pools, we have about 300 pools. Although we can do even more to narrow it down. So you can filter by project. This would be, for example, only filtering to a specific decentralized exchange, specific money market, and more. We're going to leave that open. We just want yields on Base for now. And then you can filter to a category. So you might say, well, I don't really care about the project, but I only want yield from liquid staking or liquid restaking or lending. And you can do that here. But what I think is really powerful here is this attribute feature. So these will be filters that allow you to select certain attributes of the pool. For example, you might look for pools that only had stable coins rather than filtering specifically to every single stablecoin that exists over here, you can just filter to stablecoins, and it's only going to bring up pools that are exclusively stablecoins. What might be even more useful is this no IL filter here. And so what this is going to do, you see this top pool is wrapped ETH USDC on Aerodrome. Pretty useful if you want to have half your assets in ETH and half in USDC and you don't mind some impermanent loss. However, for those of you who are worried about that, click on no IL. Now it's only showing pools that are exclusively variants of ETH. For example, CB ETH, wrapped ETH, and others. I think that filter's quite powerful. Another filter on here that might be interesting is audited, and we'll check that off. So it's only going to show you audited protocols. And then another one might be you could filter exclusively to pools over $1 million. Now you could also look here and just see the TVL, but where this is going to be useful is if we sort by APY, it's going to bring up a lot of pools that are like $10,000 that you can't really deposit into. So let's go ahead and do that. Note you can also filter manually by the TVL. That's just a shortcut. But so now we've gone from 10,000 pools down to only 19. Only 19, they all have over $1 million. They're all audited. They're all on Base. They all involve one of at least of several variants of ETH. And now we can look at the APY. We can say, okay, so this one that hit all those criteria on Morpho Blue, it's giving us around 10%. So that's going to be of course, better than what you could get normally just staking. So it's a decent yield. Or we can click into this pool on Aerodrome. And what's useful here is it shows you the change in APY over time. Because the big question people are always going to have is, will this yield last or not? And so by using this yield chart on DefiLlama, what we can see is what's the APY been in the past, right? If it's been around this in the past, it's probably going to stay there. And we can see in this case, it has hovered up and down since, say, June. But since June, it was around 11%. It dipped down below it was what it is now. It went up to 11 or 12, dipped down 11 or 12, and it's basically been around, say, 8 to 11% all summer long, even as the TVL has grown. So that tells us this particular pool, probably because of Aerodrome price appreciation, is actually like it's fairly steady in terms of what it's been yielding, which is good, of course. Let's look at some more filters in here now. You can filter by the APY, so maybe you only want something that's high. You can remove outliers. So for example, if there's none here, but let's go ahead and select all the tokens just to see like everything on Base. All right, so now we're sorting by APY, and you might say, okay, no outliers. If there was anything that was just going to be like completely out of the norm, that you don't necessarily know what's wrong. Maybe there's nothing wrong, but you might be cautious about going into it. They also have a filter for potential airdrop here. That's really powerful. So clicking on that, now look at this. I'm only seeing protocols with a potential airdrop. Now they're not perfect, right? They don't necessarily have everything. Some of these things have tokens. They may have falsely tagged it as not having a token. But here now, okay, so let's take away all these attributes. Now we're only looking at things. Let's look at just potential airdrop. All right. So now we're seeing like a list of all the pools on this chain that have a potential airdrop. That's pretty powerful for your research, right? And so this is the DefiLlama in a nutshell. They have specific tools as well to, for example, construct delta neutral strategies, to do long short strategies, leverage lending, specific stablecoin pools, halal pools, and more. But I think you can find most of what you need on this main page. And if that's not doing it for you, then I would encourage you to dive in to these other pages as well. All right, so now let's take a look at Beefy, beefy.com, great domain name. All right, so here we just looked at pools on Base. You know what, to show you the compare and contrast, let's look at more pools on Base here. So I click on Base, you can see it's a little bit easier to do here. And now it's just going to show me all of these pools on Base. And remember, Beefy is a little bit more selective than DefiLlama because you're actually depositing into these pools. And so they're not going to have quite as many, but they're going to have a lot of the major ones. And they have some very powerful things as well, such as automatic concentrated liquidity managers. I highlighted those in a recent video because those, for example, let you do concentrated liquidity on something like euros and CBBTC without having to actually do all the concentrated liquidity management yourself. All right, so that being said, let's do some more filters. One thing you might do is you might filter to stablecoins. All right, so now we're seeing stablecoin pools on Base. In my recent video, I talked about top stablecoin opportunities. This was very useful for that because I can see, for example, USDZ DOLA. I can see that the current APY is around 30%. It's got decent TVL as well. I see some opportunities with euros. I see some opportunities with these stablecoins that are a bit smaller and definitely higher risk. And going down, or in this case, up the risk curve, you can see how as you get to more reputable stablecoins, the yield is generally going to be lower. But I think that this is like a phenomenal place to find stablecoin pools. Next up, you have blue chips. So blue chips, that's going to be stablecoins. It's going to be ETH. It's going to be BTC. And it's going to be a handful of other high quality tested DeFi assets. But if you look here, at least on Base, you can see that, for example, it's mostly ETH and stablecoins with the smattering of other DeFi tokens. But here, for example, you might actually sort by APY. And let's say we don't, unless you want to hold comp, maybe we're not as interested in this one. But we see some interesting opportunities to earn yield on ETH and BTC here by using concentrated liquidity. We see some other opportunities for ETH and stablecoins here and so on down the list. And it just ends up being a really good place to find yields on top tier assets. And then we have the same correlated filter that we had over on DefiLlama, where we can look specifically for pools with assets that are already correlated, so you don't have to worry about impermanent loss. Some other filters that you may find useful are over here in the appropriately named filters section. Here they have, for example, boosted vaults and points eligible vaults. So let's look at points eligible vaults. If you like to farm airdrops, if you like videos where I show you airdrop opportunities, here's a way you can find some of them on your own, because here we see, for example, pools that are tagged. Again, we're still on Base, tagged as having points. And we see, for example, some restaking tokens. We see USDZ, which we've talked about on this channel. That's Anzin stablecoin and others. And so let's take the Base filter off for a moment. We still have this points eligible vault filter. And so we can see all of these various pools that have active points programs. And so this is a very different list than that list we had originally, because now we're still seeing hundreds of vaults, but we're only seeing things that have active points programs. And we can see, for example, there's a lot on Linea, a few on ETH, there's a few on different chains. But if you're a points farmer, then this is a great place for you. Let me know down in the comments which other tools you use to research crypto. To learn more, be sure to like and subscribe. And until next time, this is Dynamo DeFi.